Aberrant Action, the new solar rocket-assisted sidearm, just came out this week, and it is absolutely nuts. It's a really strong weapon with some very good perks, and overall just feels great to use. Without keeping you any longer, let's get into the weapon. The third column of Aberrant is just ridiculously stacked, so I'm going to lump some of these perks into categories and then talk about them. For utility, we have Pugilist and Strategist. For ammo economy, we have Field Prep. For ease of use, we have Threat Detector and Ambitious Assassin. And finally, for survivability, we have Heel Clip. I could honestly make an argument for almost all of these perks, so I'm gonna get the only one I'd skip out of the way first. Threat Detector is a great perk, I just don't feel you will get a whole lot of use out of it on rocket sidearms, as the gun deals self-damage, meaning you want to be away from enemies, not close to them to proc Threat Detector. The overall buff to feel this weapon perk applies is great, but it's also a lot more useful on something like a low-handling shotgun than Aberrant Action. Moving on to the utility perks now, we have Pugilist and Strategist. These are both great options if you are focusing in on using a melee build, or a build revolving around your class ability. Something like Consecration Titan or a Throwing Knife Hunter build where you miss your knife, for example. Going on to ammo economy now, we have Field Prep. I'll keep it one whole buck with you, I honestly think Field Prep might be a little underrated. I find myself mainly using it on machine guns, but it can be really useful here too. The enhanced version of the perk passively granting you 40 inventory size for doing nothing is just such a nice little bonus for when you are running this gun in a double special setup. And the faster reload while crouched can also come in handy, but I see you using that a lot more on a machine gun than Aberrant. Finally, moving on to the last two perks, we have Ambitious Assassin and Heel Clip. Ambitious giving you bigger mags for unaliving things is a pretty universal, and I believe they call it free, no-brainer pick. More rounds in the mag means less reloads and more kills per reload. Very easy pickup if you don't know what you want to run in the third column, which I would not blame you for. There are so many good options on this gun. Heel Clip is great in the fact that having ×2 cure on relative demand is nice to counter some chip damage, but I'm gonna say it, I honestly don't love this perk. It's definitely strong, but a lot of the time I don't find myself reloading when I need to heal, or if I'm about to unalive. I find myself moving. Now moving on to fourth column, we have less options, but still very strong options. The first and number one recommendation, in my opinion, is Incandescent, the other two being Demo and Reverberation. Starting with Incan, I almost feel like I don't really need to argue for it, but I'm going to anyway. Here is my well thought out and in-depth argument. Best legendary ad clear perk in the game, synergizes with Solar 3.0. Moving on to Demo, this falls again into the utility category, and fits very well into any grenade-based build. 11% grenade energy per kill while enhanced may not sound like a lot, but when you have other factors regenerating your grenade at the same time, it really increases how often you can have a grenade up. For the final pick, and probably my least backed perk of the three, is Reverberation. I don't have any numbers on this perk yet, as it is quite new, but in short it increases the size of the detonations from the sidearm's rockets after a kill. I can see this being used as pseudo ad clear if you really do not want to run Incan, but I don't see a whole lot of reason to pick this perk over Incan. I just thought I'd mention it in case the numbers come out and it's ridiculous or something. Looking at some numbers now, sadly I couldn't find any flat reference numbers for base rocket sidearms, so we are going to have to go off of Aegis' sustained DPS chart for now. The closest thing I would compare rocket-assisted sidearms to are trace rifles, as they serve the same kind of role of special weapon primaries, while running double special. Since Forbearance also fits this role, I'll throw that in there too. The Call with Vorpal has a total damage of 2.7 million, which is significantly more than Forbearance or our reference trace rifle, Divinity, which I would consider more than a fair comparison considering it constantly weakens and does a fair chunk of damage when the bubble pops. My point being, Aberrant and by extension all rocket sidearms have very good ammo economy for their role, especially if you are running them with Special Finder and matching scav mods. In terms of actual sustained DPS, I'll cover that quickly, but in my opinion, that's not something you should be worrying about, as I highly doubt you are using rocket sidearms for rotations, or killing yellow bars, unless you are a masochist. The Call with Vorpal and Rain of Fire maintains 68k DPS, with a bait and switch Forbearance and Div both being a fair bit lower. Again, not something to really be worrying about, but thought I'd cover it just in case you were curious. The one other thing I wanted to mention is that, for whatever reason, rocket sidearms generate finder bricks at the same rate as regular primaries, as opposed to other specials. Meaning you will only need on average 20 unalives to generate a finder brick with Aberrant instead of the 57 needed with other special weapons. This further plays into the sidearm role as a special ammo primary weapon. And finally, we are going to talk about some use cases. The number one way to use Aberrant is by far as a primary in a double special setup. It basically acts as a stronger primary, albeit with an ammo limit that you need to manage, but with how good this weapon's ammo economy is, I really don't see you running out of ammo unless you are very new to and just getting to grips with double special. Pairing Aberrant with something good at dealing with champs and mini-bosses like Izzy, Supremacy, a slug shotgun, or a trench barrel aggressive is probably your best bet to a balanced loadout for covering your bases. It is also unstopped sidearm this season, and rocket sidearm stun in one shot as long as you aim down sights long enough, so it's not a bad option for a master raid encounter with champs, or maybe even GMs if you feel comfortable running double special in a GM. Just make sure you and your team are making lots of orbs and hitting as many special finishes as you can to keep your ammo economy up. The final benefit to running Aberrant and any rocket sidearm is heavy economy. Being able to consistently generate heavy finder bricks while running double special is incredibly strong, and I believe rocket sidearms are currently the only specials that have this benefit. It really is insane that you can bring essentially a better version of a primary weapon into an activity and still generate the same amount of ammo as primaries would, which is kind of brutal for primaries because half of the reason I ever use them is to generate ammo, the other reason being to have ammo efficient ad clear, which Aberrant does as well. That's all I have for you for today. Thank you for hopping in, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.